Malaysia. And voting with the winners were the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, and other members of the Security Council. They are a majority of the world's population. And when you look at the American media, they can say, well, Obama let us down, etc. Schumer came out and said that. But the problem in American foreign policy has been since Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the president. He was also president of Princeton University. He was a racist. He fomented a racist foreign policy, and the U.S. by and large has been running on this racist foreign policy. And unfortunately, the Zionist state was created under it by the Truman administration. Let's get to the effects of this. I heard someone on Facebook say that we did not know what we speak. Well, the only thing I can say is we'll let the history decide that. This is from the Times of Israel here. The resolution was 2334. It was approved by 14 members there, and let me just make sure I have this particular article. Teresa Costello, writing on the 23rd of December in the Times of Israel. 14-0 was the score, that is to 0. The text calls upon all nations to distinguish in their relevant dealings between the territorial state of Israel and the territories occupied since 1967. Language that Israel fears will lead to a surge in boycotts and sanction efforts, no doubt about it. Israel is a new South Africa, and that Israeli officials warned would provide a tailwind of terror. The Israeli minister Yuval Stastris, butchering his name, speaking after the vote, said the U.S. has abandoned Israel, its only ally in the Mideast. That is a lie. They have the Saudis and various other characters there. The second most favored, Egypt. They, outside of the Israelis, they give more military aid to Egypt, is number 2. The Palestinian Authority hailed it as a victory. Speaking at the Security Council after the vote, the ambassador, whom we will hear from, Samantha Power, said the decision underlines the Council's long-standing position that settlements have no legal validity, which is true. They are outlawed elements. She claims the U.S. position was fully in line with bipartisan history of U.S. presidents. She is correct on that. And we'll leave the rest of the commentary. You'll hear from Samantha Power herself. This resolution, of course, was by New Zealand, Malaysia, as we said before, Venezuela, under the leader there of Comandante Mundros, and the Bolivarian revolution in Senegal. And let's move down here from various characters here. We won't go into what they had to say, but the Secretary Minister Kerry has been a champion in this particular situation. So we'll start here. This is the history. Now, for those that say we don't know what we're talking about, they should listen. Former President Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, all permitted the UN Assembly or another Security Council to adopt resolutions critical of the Jewish state. Ronald Reagan reportedly saw 21 measures through international bodies, while George H.W. Bush allowed 9, Bill Clinton 3, and G.W. Bush 6. In November of 1981, Ronald Reagan voted in favor of the General Assembly a resolution condemning Israeli airstrikes on the Iraq nuclear facility, and was part of a campaign to prevent Iraq from fulfilling its nuclear aspirations. The measure called upon the Security Council to investigate Israel's nuclear activities and have the nation's own nuclear sites subject to international monitoring. On 2004, the Bush administration abstained from a vote of a draft resolution of the Security Council condemning Israel for demolishing Palestinian homes in Gaza. So that has been moved forward here, and there is a long list of what is going on. Now, the resolutions that it back up, and this is some of the history here. 242, that's in 1967. 338 in 1973. 446, 1979. 452, 1979. 465 in 1980. And another one, 478, that's also in 1980. 1397 in 2002. 1515 in 2003. And 1850 in 2008, all of which the Israelis have violated. Granted by the purpose and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, reflecting inter alia the admissibility of the acquisition of territory by force. Now that has been a provision forever. On the Geneva Convention, the protection of civilian persons in time of war, that is on the 12th of August 1949, and recalling the advisory opinion rendered on the 9th of July 2014 by the International Court of Justice, which the Israeli state has violated. So in other words, there is a long list of obligations here they have not lived up to, expressing grave concern that continuing Israeli settlement activities are dangerously impairing the viability of the two-state solution based on the 1967 lines, and reaffirming obligation under the Quartet Roadmap endorsed by resolution, this is 1515 in 2003. For a freeze by the Israelis of all settlement activity, including a normal growth and dismantlement of all settlement outposts erected since March of 2001. So in other words, there is a very, very long history here, and most Americans have no idea that it is here. The Mideast peace process within the framework specified by the Quartet, that was in Statement 21 in 2010. So the history is very, very long. This is from the times of Israel. Now let's go to RT here to get some of the comment of various characters here on the scene. DJ Trump called on the U.S. to veto the resolution. Did not happen. As to the UN, things will be different after the 20th of January. That's DJ Trump from his official Twitter account. The Israeli envoy to the UN, Danny Danon, criticized the decision to abstain. However, he expressed confidence that the new president would no doubt usher in a new era in UN-Israeli relations. Well, he won't. The adoption of 2324, 14 yes, 1 abstention. USA results sustained applause at the UN chamber. From Saab Erekat, he is the chief negotiator for the Palestinians. This is a day of victory for international law, a victory for civilized language and negotiation, and a total rejection of extreme forces in the Israel. From President Abbas, told the official Palestinian newspaper Wafa that the move was a blow to Israel. That was Abu Mazen speaking there. Security Council resolution is a big blow to Israeli policy, a unanimous international condemnation of settlements, and strong support for two-state solution. That was Abu Mazen, And basic other people here from the Bibi Netanyahu, the U.S. should veto. Well, we forgot about all that. So it is back to 1967. Now more than 500,000 Israelis live on occupied land. So the Palestinians have moved for full independence, which that means of land, air, and sea. You cannot have a nation unless you have the right to navigate in the sea and fly in the air, and have a right to your borders, as DJ Trump would say. Those things have to be ushered in 2016, 2017 is the minimum that a civilized nation must be afforded, and we are operating in civilized nations. And this is part of the problem with the whole Wilsonian foreign policy. It's a racist foreign policy. It's a jungle bunny policy. It was created under Wilson, and it's been upheld through the Great Patriotic War, World War II. It went into the Korean War when the UN was a tool of imperialism, and that war has never been finished. It went into Vietnam. There's a whole history of these conflicts, and these dirty little nations are there, or the attempts to make them dirty. The Cuban boycott. Those things are still out there, realms of the past. They should already be gone. And no matter how hard this reactionary regime of DJ Trump, otherwise the gangster, will try to do, he cannot unwrite the history. Yes, he can stop progress, but progress will go on. DJ Trump is like he has his hand in the dike, and the dike will flood over and wash away this reactionary regime. Now, how long will that take? 5 years, 10 years, 15 or 20 years. But that will happen. And there will be a two-state solution there. So Netanyahu better get used to it. It will, in fact, happen there, because relations will force that. As these nations that are voting, the world's population, the world against them, I guess they see it that way. And in effect, it is to China, the most populous nation, India, that's over 2 billion people. That's one tiny nation cannot be afford to upset the apple cart. So the whole relationship in the Mideast will change once that changes. So what DJ Trump has done is up the ante. He's talking about a nuclear arms race. A nuclear arms race is a nuclear arms race. The Zionists have nuclear weapons. So their only solution is to fire the nuclear weapons. Iraq is working on it. And no doubt will have something they can at least put in a gun and send in the air. So the whole situation is, once you have nuclear weapons out there, the rest of this is speculative. DJ Trump's talking about modernizing the weaponry system of the U.S. over 20 or 30 years. Already the price of stocks in certain uranium and certain other things have went up. That's $1 trillion program. effectively look at it like this. This is a substitute for the 9/11 boondoggle, when they were out there chasing